Hello, my name is Bethany. Welcome back to another video. Today's video is very important because it is about all the books that have made me cry this year. I love a good cry. I cry at pretty much everything. So some of these don't really make sense. You know, some of them are clearly sad books that are supposed to make you cry, but a lot of them are very happy romances. So there's a lot of different reasons for the crying, different levels of crying, but I know I love a good crying recommendation. How many times can I say crying? So let's get into it. Okay, so starting in January, 3 books made me cry. And the first one was The Lovely War by Julie Berry. Just Lovely War, not Thou. This is a World War I/World War II historical fiction. But what's really unique about it is that it's narrated by the Greek gods. So you're hearing most of it from like Aphrodite and a couple other gods here and there. I mean, yeah, it makes a lot of sense that I would cry at like a heartbreaking World War II romance, but this writing is also so beautiful that I probably would have cried just about the writing, you know? If you are into historical fiction at all, I definitely recommend this one. The twist with the gods is just so different, and yeah, what a good book. This one I just lightly cried at, but this is Concrete Rose by Angie Thomas. So this is kind of a prequel to The Hate You Give, which is her most famous book. It follows Star's father. So basically he discovers that he is going to be a dad, and he tries to like turn his life around and be a good dad, etc. It was just really, really good. I did find the writing style a little difficult to get into, but once I was kind of like immersed, I couldn't stop reading. It's super quick to get through. And yeah, it was just very heartbreaking and heartwarming at the same time, you know? And I shed a tear. I also cried at a Harry Potter fan fiction, which is still the only one I've read. So I read Manacled by Sen Lin Yu. I talked about it in my January wrap-up, but oh my god. If you are at all a Harry Potter fan, especially if you were when you were younger and now you're like pissed off at J.K. Rowling like I am, get into fan fiction. It's amazing. Some people are way better writers than J.K. Rowling. I don't really want to talk about what Manacled is about because it's very weird, but you can look it up, and I sobbed. Okay, in February, I cried very hard at A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. I'm just waiting on some custom dust jackets to come, so that's why it's naked. But yeah, say what you want about Sarah J. Maas. She knows how to write a good, like, trauma character recovery story. This is the most recent book in the ACOTAR series following Nesta and Cassian. Nesta, I think, hit home for a lot of readers, especially people in their 20s, and that was certainly the case for me. I am very attached to her. I would die for her. The female friendships in this book were incredible. The romance was great. Plot, very weak, but that's fine. I love this one. I can't wait to reread it. I started rereading it and tabbing, and then I just couldn't handle it again. So yeah, this one, love it. I also weirdly cried at Counting Down With You by Tashi Bhuiyan. So this is like a YA contemporary about a Bengali girl who her parents go back to Bangladesh for like a month, so she has a little bit more freedom than she normally would, and she starts fake dating this boy basically. I can't remember why, but they're fake dating, which is great. Yeah, I really wasn't expecting this to be like heart-wrenching, but I felt very attached to the main character. She was written really well. I did find, like, it wasn't my favorite book because it was very Gen Z. Like, there was a lot of texting conversations, and I'm sure they were very accurate to how, like, Gen Z teenagers text each other. But I felt too old for it. So it was a good book. I cried a little bit. It wasn't like a good big cry or anything, but yeah, especially if you like YA contemporary, I'd definitely check it out. Okay, in March, I bawled my eyes out at Act Your Age, Eve Brown by Talia Hibbert. So the third book in her Brown Sisters trilogy, following Eve, obviously. I love all 3 books in this series. I feel like they all made me cry, I think. But Act Your Age, Eve Brown, ooh. So Eve is the youngest sister. She's kind of like flighty, has never really figured out what she wants to do with her life. And the inciting incident in this book is that her parents are like, you gotta do something, like, we're not paying for you to just like flit around doing nothing anymore. So she's kind of like, doesn't really know what she wants to do, a lot of internal struggles, and I related to that. So that was good. Yeah, this just really hit home. The romance was really good. The plot was great. Just an awesome book in general, but I just felt very personally impacted by it. I also cried at The Wide Starlight by Nicole Lesperance. Beautiful cover, first of all. This is like really a story about a mother-daughter relationship. It's kind of like, it's magical realism based on like Nordic folklore, really. So this girl is half Norwegian. Her mother disappeared like on a glacier, I think. A frozen fjord, sorry, in Norway. And she thinks that the Northern Lights took her, so she's always held out hope that she's going to come back. And she's basically trying to find her mother and figure out what happened. A good mother-daughter relationship always hits me, you know. This was beautifully written. It was very, very like magical because it's magical realism. But yeah, this really came out of nowhere and made me cry a lot. The next one's a good one. This is Yoke by Mary H.K. Choi. I read Emergency Contact by this author and thought it was like pretty good, but it didn't like hit me really. I have her other book to read, but this one, oh my god. So this follows a girl named Jane who is living in New York City going to college, and she's really just kind of like a wreck. Like she's got nothing together. And she is a little bit estranged from her older sister, June. I always mix up their names. And then she finds out that June has cancer, and it kind of like fragilely reunites their relationship. There are so many heavy topics in this book, so it's definitely not like a nice light summer read, but the characters, at times they felt a little underdeveloped because I don't know exactly how to explain what was so impactful about this book, but Jane and June just seem so real, and the relationship is like so flawed and relatable. And I just, like, my heart really hurt for these characters. This one was less of like I found it really relatable, although it was more of like genuine sadness at what these characters were going through. In April, I cried at Rule of Wolves by Leigh Bardugo, which is a book that I have very mixed feelings on. This is not a review, but I felt like a lot of plot points, like something would happen and then it would never matter again. You know what I mean? I won't spoil this, but if you've read it, there is one specific death. That's what made me cry. The rest didn't really like hit me. I'm glad I read it, but I have mixed feelings, like I said. But yeah, that one death really got to me. I hope the show gets this far so then I can be emotionally destroyed by the show. So these were all in different months, I think, but I cried at 3 of the 4 Graceling books. Bitter Blue was the only one that didn't make me cry. So I remember reading at least the first 2 books of Graceling when I was like maybe 16 or something. I very clearly remember reading Fire for some reason. But I think now that I'm older, they really just are so good. You know, like they stand up and they're even better than I remembered. And they all kind of follow different characters too, so they all made me cry for different reasons. This one follows Katza, who lives in a world where certain people have graces. They are called Gracelings. And this is just like a big special talent, and hers is killing, so she's kind of used as like an assassin, which she doesn't want to be doing. This was really good. There's a scene where she goes over this like treacherous mountain range and you don't think they're gonna make it, blah, blah, blah. And it just was written so well. I could not put it down. I was just like so immersed in it emotionally. I cried, I laughed, I loved it. And I was like, oh my God, I can't wait to read the rest of the series. And then Fire. This one made me cry the most. So this is more of like, this is a smaller story. It's got less of a like fast moving plot. It follows a girl in a different country of the same world named Fire, and she is a monster, which means that she can like draw people in with her beauty and get them to do whatever she wants to do, I think. And again, she doesn't want to do that. She doesn't want to manipulate people. She just, as you can imagine, has a lot of trouble getting close to people. People don't really feel like they can trust her. It was so introspective and so beautiful. I loved it so much. And then Winterkeep is actually a new release in the series, set maybe like 10 years after Bitter Blue. And it's set in another different country called Winterkeep. The main character is named Lavisa. Without any spoilers, there is a lot of abuse in this book. It was very well handled and very well written, but it's extremely heartbreaking. I just died for Lavisa like 10 times. So yeah, I sobbed at this book. I already want to reread these. Like, they're genuinely so good, and I need everyone to read them. I also cried at Normal People by Sally Rooney. So this is one of those books, I think I've talked about this before, but when a book gets this popular, like even outside of people who normally read, I think it's my superiority complex coming out, but I'm like, oh, I'm probably not gonna like it, which is stupid. Like, that happened with Where the Crawdads Sing, and I loved it. This, oh my God. So I can see why people don't like this, but I also can't. I do think the characters are very frustrating. I agree with that. But I also found them very relatable. Like, if you're a perfect person and you don't have any flaws, sure, you're gonna find them annoying. But I think we all have flaws. So I felt very personally attacked by this book, and the relationship and the characters made me feel a lot of things. I like dog-eared pages because I didn't have any tabs when I was reading it, and I was like, I have to mark these passages. So yeah, this shattered my heart. I am not ready for the show, so I haven't watched it yet, but I couldn't believe how much I like this. Okay, we're on to May, so here I have a nice happy cry. I read House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. I'm not going to bother explaining this plot because I feel like everyone's read it at this point, or at least heard of it, but yeah, I was hoping this would make me happy cry, and then it did. It was so nice. I sobbed at the end, like a nice, just cathartic, good sob, and I loved it. Okay, this is another romance. So this is The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary. Again, picked this up expecting it to just be kind of like a nice little fun romance, and then 3 hours later I was sobbing on my deck. So this follows Tiffy and Leon, and basically they end up having this weird arrangement where he works nights and she works like a 9 to 5. So she has the apartment on at night and he has the apartment during the day. So they never actually see each other. They like share a bed, but separately, you know? Does that make sense? Obviously they end up falling in love, but it just, again, there was like an abuse plot line in this, which I don't relate to. Like, that's never something that's happened to me, but obviously it's emotional. These characters were just written so well that anytime anything good or bad happened to them, I felt like it was happening to me. And I immediately ordered every other book that Beth O'Leary has, which we'll get to. But yeah, I couldn't believe how good this was. Another romance. Do I have a problem? I Cried at People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. This is like one of my all-time new favorite books. So this follows Poppy and Alex. They used to go on like an annual trip, and then something bad happened on one of their trips. We don't really find out what, and they're like a little bit estranged now. Poppy is a travel writer, and I used to travel like pre-pandemic. I will be traveling again, but so I really related to the travel storylines here. There's a lot of themes about like Poppy traveling to kind of escape herself and like her life, and I was like, ooh. So I love this book. I don't even have any like good words to say about it. I can't wait to read Beach Read, which is also by this author, but I can't recommend this enough. Okay, now the next Beth O'Leary book. So next I read The Road Trip, which was her new release. This was very kindly sent to me by a publisher. This follows Dylan and Addie, who broke up 2 years ago? Yeah. And they haven't spoken since. It was like a very bad breakup. And then they end up, through some strange circumstance, having to carpool to a wedding in the north of Scotland, and everything is going wrong on the road trip. It just like really dove into the reasons behind their breakup and like why they felt like they weren't good enough for the relationship. And again, I just felt like everything that was happening to the characters was happening to me. I'm trying to remember if I felt personally attacked by either of the characters. I think I did, but I can't remember why. Either way, it was very, very good. I only have one more Beth O'Leary book to read now, and I'm like, ugh. I've heard mixed reviews about this one. I feel like people they think it's their least favorite Beth O'Leary book, but I really loved it. Second last one. So this is The Island of Sea Women by Lisa C. This is a historical fiction. Sorry, a chipmunk distracted me. This is a historical fiction set in South Korea during the 1930s and 1940s through like Japanese colonialism. I have read Lisa C before. Shanghai Girls is one of my all-time favorite books, but I forgot how like brutal her books are. They follow like amazing female friendships and relationships over years and decades, but there's also always like a horrible, horrible thing going on in the world. So I didn't know how awful the Japanese colonialism was on this island that the book is set on. It was heartbreaking, very tragic. Yeah, this book like really stuck in my head. Okay, last we have an arc that I read, which my friend is borrowing right now, so I don't have my copy, but it is Apples Never Fall by Leanne Moriarty. First, can't believe I got an arc of this book. Leanne Moriarty wrote like Big Little Lies, Nine Perfect Strangers, a bunch of other books. But I forgot how much I loved her books. I literally wrote like a page-long review as soon as I finished this because I was like, oh, it was so good. It basically follows 4 siblings and their mother goes missing. Their parents have been together forever. It's like super out of character. And the whole story is just kind of trying to figure out where she went and why, but it also dives into each sibling and the mom and the dad and some side characters. I just think that people discount her books as like, you know, just like a summer read, just a light thing for the beach. But they're so hard hitting. They're so like, oh, they're so good. It's like the perfect mystery with everything else that you could possibly want. But anyway, that's not what this video is about. Why did I cry at this book? Yeah, just the characters just felt so real. Like there were certain ones that I related to more. One of the siblings has really bad anxiety and it was written excellently. It felt very relatable to me. But even the ones that I didn't necessarily have anything in common with, I felt very attached to by the end of the book. It just wrapped up so perfectly that the ending made me cry because it was so satisfying. That sounds weird. But I can't wait for this book to come out. I pre-ordered mine like the moment I finished the arc, even though I have the physical arc. And it was so good. Okay, so those are all the books that have made me cry so far this year. I'm excited to find some more. I'm surprised there's not more fantasy, but I guess it's easier to cry at like something that's very clearly relatable to your regular life. I would love to know if you've cried at any good books this year or if you've read any of these. Please don't judge me for being such a crybaby. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.